So I just wanted to share this story of what happened to me. I usually work at 5 a.m, so I have to wake up at 4 and be ready to leave by 4:30. When I leave, the neighbourhood is usually quiet. It's late, it's dark, and a bit creepy, especially since my backyard is a big swampy wooded area. I'm used to it now though. This particular day, however, was weird to say the least. I woke up really cold. The back of my neck felt tight and cold. I thought maybe it was because I took a shower and passed out straight after, but my hair was dry. Leaving the house felt uneasy. I felt like something was watching me. Not from the woods, but from the road. I got scared, so I ran inside my car and slammed and locked the door. I still felt uneasy. It was as if someone was standing behind my car in the driveway, but I didn't see anyone. I checked the back seat too, like I usually do, to see if anyone was hiding back there. Of course there isn't. It's 4:30 in the morning. My mind is probably panicking, right? So I set off for work. My usual casual drive, listening to music. I'm about to stop at a 4-way stop sign when I saw a car on my left with their high beams on. It stopped but wasn't signalling which way it was going. There were only 2 ways to go because one of the roads is closed, so I had to turn right. I turned and looked back through my mirror and saw absolutely nothing. I didn't see the car anywhere. I didn't see it turn either. I looked back to the road I came from and all other possible turn-offs, even the closed road. But nothing. I got so scared and started speeding out of there. I turned quickly down this neighbourhood that was a diversion for the closed road. I was going 40 to 25 miles per hour when all of a sudden I see a skinny black cat appear in front of my headlights. I was lucky enough to react quickly and stamp hard on the brakes before I hit the cat. The cat didn't care. My car stopped in time and the cat just strolls over to my side of the car and sits on the sidewalk staring at me. Heart beating, I didn't move as I stared back at the cat. About 1 minute of it staring at me, it got up, hissed, and ran away. I remember hearing that someone had crashed on the crossroad that I'd just stopped at only a couple of days before. I don't remember if someone got hurt, but I think I passed said car without realizing, and the car behind me had stopped at the accident. I don't know. Was it karma or guilt? I like Snapchat like every other person in the world, but one thing I forgot to do on Snapchat is get rid of the location thing. At the time I didn't really care about it anyway. For some context, I'm not very well known, but I have a few friends on social media. I really like art, so I have some friends that share interests. Even though that wasn't relevant, I just wanted to give a little context about me. One night I was sitting on my phone looking through Twitter, Instagram, and a bunch of other stuff when I got a text message from someone that was following me on Snapchat. I ignored it for a little bit until I got 4 more messages. I started to get frantic, realizing it was the same person. So I got on Snapchat and looked, and what I saw was absolutely terrifying. It was pictures of my house, the front yard, my fence, my side door, and the back of my property. As soon as I looked at the pictures, I got another text message. The conversation went like this. Hello there. Hi, do I know you? Whether you know me or not is not important. What's important is that there's a poor stranger outside your house. I thought it was one of my friends pranking me. Okay, I don't know who this is and why you're trying to prank me, but it's not funny. This is not a joke, but more of a game. What do you want from me? I'll have you know I'm not home alone. No answer. 5 minutes go by. So you're with a boy. Is he your boyfriend? Just kidding. I know who he is. Okay, you have 20 seconds to tell me who you are, send me a picture of your face, or you can leave my property before I call the police. You do that, and by the time the police get there, they won't even find a body. Or rather, bodies. Okay, at least tell me who you are. As this is happening, I'm whispering to my brother to call 911 and be subtle about it. Tell them to come quietly so the man doesn't hear they're outside the house. My brother gets up frantically and decides to start walking towards the window. I tell him to stop and to get down to make it look like you're grabbing for one of your fake guns. I got another text. Okay, you can see my brother, right? He has a gun, and if you even try to get near us, he will shoot you down. Ha, that's funny. Because all your brother has are toy guns. He doesn't have a real one. They're all stored in the corner right by the PS4 and TV. I stared into oblivion, completely horrified that he knows about everything in our house. He starts describing all sorts of things. What animals we have, what their names are, talking about my mum and dad and what their names are and how old they are. But the one thing you could never know was our birthdays. My family were always very private about our birthdays. I would never let anyone know except family and close friends. We were pretty sure that he was just guessing our ages based on height and weight. He was pretty good because he knew my parents' exact age and how long they've been married. I decided to look out of my bedroom window. All the main lights were off except my nightlight, so I turned that off and stared out of the window. I have a nightlight because I've had traumatic experiences in the dark, resulting in PTSD. Since then my parents got me the light so I wouldn't be scared or have nightmares anymore. And it's worked so far. I look down and I see a man hunched over. He looks about 60 or 70 from where I can see him. We have a lot of street lights so I could see him pretty clearly, and he had grey hair. I could see him looking left and right, back and forth through our windows. The thing is that the street lamp is right next to my window so you could tell if someone was opening the blinds. I barely opened the blind and looked out. He didn't see me, but it looked like he might have. I didn't want to freak out or bring attention to myself. Eventually the cops came and the man continued to stare at my window for another 10 seconds. When he heard the sirens, he made a run for it, but was caught by the cops. Later on I found out it was my great-uncle. Apparently he was very jealous of my dad being as successful as he is, and had planned to murder me and my brother with a knife out of revenge. After that incident we installed a top-of-the-range security system, and I stopped using Snapchat. I remember that the phone that he was using had been a gift from my family to him, and we were actually nice enough to start paying his bill because he had such a horrible stick-in-the-mud job. We helped him out, and how does he repay us? For stalking me and my brother and trying to murder us. So this took place a while back. I was still in high school, so probably 17 years old. I was a small kid, about 5'8", weighing in around 125 pounds. I was basically just a peaceful little stoner dude. One day me and my friends decided to go to the beach to chill and just do dumb teenage stuff. Smoke a bit of weed and drink a few beers. Apparently they weren't the best of friends though, because they ditched me. I went off to take a piss and get some firewood from the woods, and when I came out I saw them walking down the beach about 80 feet away. 3 beach entrances away from where I was. We had a bonfire going, so I was like, where are they going? Why is the whole group just leaving? They then start to walk up to the beach entrance towards the road. I run up the beach closest to me, which was right behind me. By the time I get to the road, I see the last of them getting into the truck and then taking off. At this point, I'm like, what the fuck, dude? I was really pissed because my phone was dead and I'm in the farthest part of the beach from any civilization. It'd only be like a 2-mile walk to civilization, but I figured there's no way they'd ditch me for good. They'll be back. So I decided to go back to the bonfire and wait for them to return. I was pretty used to being at the beach by myself. Sometimes I come up here just to clear my head, but I was pretty nervous because I've always had a phone or a vehicle of some kind. If I had wanted to leave, I would have to walk around 2 miles away just to get to civilization, but my house was about 5 miles away. While I was sitting at the fire, I remember watching the coals and getting an overwhelming feeling I'm being watched. Normally I would have just shrugged it off to just being high and paranoid, but my phone was dead and I was a little nervous. I scan up and down the beach, looking over my shoulder, looking everywhere. The beach is illuminated by the light of the full moon. While scanning the beach, I noticed something by one of the beach entrances, probably 50 feet away. It looked like the silhouette of somebody, just standing there. I couldn't tell if they were looking at me or not, but I figured they were because I was the only one out there. I go back to looking at the fire, trying to ignore what I'd just seen, but I can't help feeling that I'm still being watched. I look back and the guy is still standing there. Okay, this is getting weird. It's been about 5 minutes. He's just standing there. I decided that I'm going to occupy my mind by going to get some more firewood. I walk up the beach away from the direction that the guy is at, but then I thought maybe I should have gone a different way so the guy didn't know where I was going. Then I told myself I'm just being paranoid and to stop thinking about it. I'm out in the woods trying to collect firewood, only using the moonlight because I have no phone light. About 15 minutes go by and I almost completely forgot about the weird figure standing on the beach. I fill my arms with firewood and start making my way back to my fire. Right before I got to the fire, I looked up and noticed the man sitting next to the fire. I froze for a second because I didn't see him at first. I continued towards the fire and dropped the wood. I glanced at the man really quickly to get a look at him. He had a hollow face and was staring blankly into the fire. I begin to stoke the fire, but also trying to make conversation. "Nice night for a fire, huh?" I ask. "Yep," he replies. I tell him I come out here often and build fires. He says nothing. I'm just talking pretty much to myself at this point. I was talking about something, but I forget what it was. Then he cut me off and asked me if I believed in God. God? Yeah, I guess so. He then said, "That's good." "Where are your friends at?" was his next question. My heart sank a little. He'd seen my friends leave. He's been watching us. They went to the store. They should be back soon." "Oh, they've been gone for a while, huh?" At this point, I'm really weirded out, as he knows how long they've been gone for. We've been hanging out for like 15 minutes, but my friends must have been gone for 40. His questions were completely out of left field, and had nothing to do with the previous ones. How old I was, where I was from, what were my parents' names, etc. Then he asked me if I was a virgin. I said, I've got to get some more firewood. I'll be right back." I decide I'm going to go wait for my friends to get back or any car to drive by, then I'll flag them down and tell them some weirdo is on the beach. I walk up onto the sidewalk and walk down a little way so if the weird guy comes out, he won't find me. I sit down on the other side of the beach. 5 minutes later, I see a light shine through the woods where I came up from, and I can hear rustling too. Shit, I thought. I should have walked further. The guy walks out and walks towards his car, maybe 20 feet in the opposite direction from me. He's probably like 60 feet or less away, but I was relieved he was leaving. He got in his car, so I decided to walk back to the beach. The only thing I didn't take into account was his headlights were pointing right at me. I'm walking towards his car because that's where the nearest beach entrance is. He starts his car and the headlights light me up. He immediately kills his car and jumps out. "Hey buddy, what's up? You want to ride?" "No thanks, I'm just gonna hang out here." He says, "Yeah, me too." Then he starts walking towards me rather quickly. I also pick up pace and turn off into the beach entrance before he does. He must have been about 20 feet away. As soon as I'm out of view, I book it towards the beach. As soon as I hit the soft sand, I jump over a little dune and hide behind a patch of seagrass. Holy shit, I'm thinking. He runs out a couple of feet past me and starts looking for me in different bushes nearby. I knew he had to be running because he was right behind me. When he finally got a little further from my spot, I decided to go back to the road as I felt it was my best chance, so I ran for it. I know he saw me because I could hear him take off too. I would have outrun him, but I tripped on a tree root on my way to the sidewalk. I hear him right behind me. I jump up and turn around, and there he is. He wasn't as tall as I thought. He was probably only 3 inches taller than me. He was a meek-looking guy, kind of scrawny. I yell, "I'm about to jack you in your shit." He threw his hands up and said kinda playfully, "I just wanted to make sure you were safe. These beaches can be dangerous at night." He was smiling a crooked smile, which was really creepy considering I just threatened to hit this guy. Then he said, Obviously, you've got this under control, though." He winked and walked past me. I watched him walk up the beach entrance and make a left at the end towards his car. I finally let out a sigh of relief. At least that's over. I walk out to the sidewalk because I didn't want to be in the woods or on the beach if that guy decided to show up again. When I get to the sidewalk, I see the guy's car still there and his headlights are on. He's laid back in the back seat. Weird, I thought. He hasn't seen me yet. I decide to carry on down the sidewalk towards town. Plus there's a spot where the sidewalk bends out of view of the headlights a little way up. I hear a car door shut, so I look back and see him picking up a backpack off the ground and walking towards his trunk. I figured he probably has alcohol or something in it. I hear the trunk close, so I take another look. This time I see he's got something else in his hand, like a hammer or something. He walks to the driver's side of his car and throws his tool and backpack in the front. He jumps in the car and starts to drive into my direction. I'm scared now. Something just didn't seem right at all. So I start jogging down the sidewalk, but there's nowhere for me to go, really. There were houses on the other side, but I'd have to scale a huge gate to get in there. It was built in a way to be nearly impossible to climb. The guy parks right in front of me, waits until I'm right next to his car, kills the headlights but keeps the car running. I then hear him open the door. I look back over my shoulder. I see him reaching over, no doubt grabbing his gear. I didn't need to see any more at this point. I took off at full sprint and crossed the road. I was going to go for the gate. Right when I went to cross the road, I saw his headlights coming around the bend. Holy shit, what are the odds? I had never been so happy. I'm literally standing in the middle of the road, waving my arms and screaming like a madman. Then I hear the guy's door shut and his engine turn over. He peeled off in seconds. And guess who it was pulling up? My so-called friends. You know what their excuse for ditching me was? Sorry, we went to go check out a party and we didn't know where you went. I was so fucking furious. I didn't say a word to them the whole ride back, except for the one kid who I thought was my really good friend. I cussed him up left and right and told him about what happened. He tried to apologize, but I never talked to him again. I told my parents, who told the police. They brought me in for questions, but I guess they never found him. They also told me there wasn't much I could do because I couldn't make out the car or very many distinguishing features. Probably because I was a bit drunk. Anyway, that was the only time in my life I thought I was going to get murdered. I still won't go to that beach area by myself, and if I go anywhere by myself, I make sure I have a full phone battery. Thanks for listening to my story. Feels so good to get it off my chest. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. This boy that was in my third year middle school class. None of my friends remember him, and I can't seem to recall his name, but I can see his face, his voice. The only reason why I made this Reddit post is so I can finally get this story out there. I live in Florida near Tampa, a strange place with strange people. I've seen it all. The strangest person I've met, though, is this mysterious boy in 2009. There was nothing inherently wrong with him. He was a borderline emo kid, very kind, charismatic. I sorta liked him, not gonna lie. Anyway, he and I were good acquaintances. He liked to watch me draw and would beg me to draw him a tiger so he could get it as a tattoo. Something I said maybe to a lot, but I was never going to do it. One day the whole school was buzzing about some juicy gossip about this boy. His girlfriend at the time had shared to everyone that he had bit into her neck and drank her blood. I never saw the wound, but I did see the bandage on her neck. Naturally, everyone in my class that I had with him were teasing him and asking him if it was true. The whole time he kept quiet with his head down. The only time he spoke was when the class clown called him a vampire. I remember him standing and pointing at the kid, snapping at him. I think he just said, "Shut up," or something. I don't know. He then sat back down and kept his head on the desk. He didn't do any work for the next few days, just kept his head down. I never talked to him. I was too shy. After like 4 days, he was gone. No one talked about him or the rumors, and no one from then recalls him at all. I don't have a yearbook either. I'm not saying he's a vampire, but I do like to imagine that's what it was. Florida has been known for vampiric things, at least where I am. From a vampire club in Ybor to the strange tale of Rob Ferrell, a vampire teen that was a part of a larger clan who murdered his girlfriend's father. I also have another vampire encounter that I have several witnesses to, but that's for later. I want to find this man too. I wish I knew more about him. I wish I could look up his name. If anyone recalls this story in their middle school, please tell me so I don't feel crazy anymore. So to start this off, this was a couple of years back around summer, and I was at my cousin's place. We all had a Disneyland pass, so on the days that we could go, which was practically almost every day, we would head over there and stay morning till late at night. One day we just decided to go, out of the blue, and well, I can't say no to Disney, so we were there probably around early morning until super late at night. I'm telling you, walking the entire day really did tire me out, so on the drive back I was completely knocked out. I remember walking into my great-grandma's room and just passing out on the floor. My cousins were just scattered around the room, just talking, and I guess I sat on the floor to do so, but was knocked out. I woke up at either 2 a.m. or 3 to the sound of someone screaming, and at first I just sat there wondering whether I was dreaming, or are there people actually yelling at this hour? My cousins were running up and down the stairs and just saying, "Call 911 now!" That's when I really woke up and ran out of the room. No one was home, but I was hearing a lot of stuff going on outside, so when I checked my eldest cousin's room, her boyfriend was beating the crap out of this guy on the front lawn. There were probably 4 cars parked up outside the house, and as I walked past them I saw my aunt pressed up against the garage door, holding a gun, just pointing away at these men as they were trying to practically attack her. It had started off with one guy having beef with her for God knows what, and he then decided to bring his friends and, well, started this whole chaos. Out of the 5 cousins that were in the house, one ran out, tossing me the phone as the 911 responder was asking to explain what was happening. I explained as best I could and ran back inside because I didn't know if those men were armed or not. Cops came and sorted it all, and now this is where stuff just gets weird and kind of crazy. My aunt told my uncle, "Put the gun back in its safe." So he did, and I remember sitting on a chair near the island table because I was trying to get my heart rate back to normal since I was freaking out. I was on my phone for a good couple of minutes until I noticed it had a low battery. Now mind you, it felt like those moments where your phone hits 1% and you're just booking it to a charger so it won't die. The second I got up and went to grab my charger, all I heard was a loud bang. Made me jump out of my skin. I looked down to see a bullet roll to my feet. I walked back to the chair I was sitting at just seconds ago, just to see a hole right through it. What happened was that. Well, from what he'd said was that he'd tried to put it on a safety but accidentally pulled the trigger in doing so. The bullet went through the floor from upstairs, through the ceiling of the kitchen, hit the countertop through the chair I sat on and rolled onto the floor near my feet. He ran downstairs asking if everyone was okay, and all I did was just stand there, thinking what if I'd never cared if my phone had died, and still sat there just a couple of seconds more. May not be one of those scary stories to spook kids or whatnot, but this really did scare the shit out of me that day. How did it go from a fun Disney day to nearly having a bullet hole in me? One night I was out with a friend at the movies. We had just finished watching a horror film and were getting ready to leave. I looked at the time and it was coming up to midnight. We decided to get ready and head back to the car to go home. It had been about 20 minutes since we left the movies and we were on the road. We started heading down an old dirt road away from civilization, filled with eerie dark trees on either side. All was normal, listening to music, joking, laughing in general and having a good time. That was until we started running low on petrol. I said to my friend, "Hey, maybe we should stop off at a petrol station to refill just in case we break down." We were about an hour away from where we both lived, and we were not going to make it with the amount of petrol we had left. I insisted that we turn back and go to the nearest petrol station and refill. But it was too late. The car had shut down and the nearest petrol station was miles away. We were stranded in the middle of nowhere on a dark, spooky road. We had no other option but to call for help on our phones, but there was no signal. I suggested that I walk back to the town and look for help, but my friend said no, it's a bad idea for us to split up. We must stay together. I agreed that it was the safest option. We waited around 15 minutes to see if anyone would drive down the road and help us, but nobody came. We waited and waited until suddenly 2 bright lights appeared in the distant trees. We shot up and instantly ran towards it in hopes that it was another driver. We had run into the trees and attempted to follow the car until I realized and said, "Why are the lights not moving?" The more we ran, the more the lights got further and further away. We gave up. It was getting late. It had reached 2 a.m. We had travelled so far deep into this forest we had lost track of where the car was. We were getting tired and decided to rest. We came across this old abandoned wooden cabin and decided to use it as shelter while we slept. It took a while, but eventually we both drifted off to sleep. It felt like seconds later a bright, blinding white light filled the dark forest and woke me up. I thought, yes, someone has come to rescue us. I turned to look at my friend and wake him up, but he had gone. In confusion, I got up and tried to look for him. That's when I noticed the disgusting stench of rotting flesh. I turned around to see the most horrifying sight I have ever seen. I could see black, shadowy like owl creatures with massive white glowing beady eyes. There were hundreds of them, if not thousands, just sitting in the trees with emotionless blank stares. Full of dread and horror, I sprinted back the way we came and eventually what felt like hours got back to the car and decided to find my way back to the town. I eventually saw street lights and heard the sounds of cars. I had never felt so much relief in my life. I came across a police station, so went in and asked for help. I told the officers what happened and where I lived. They offered to drive me home, so I agreed. So off I was, finally on the way back home. After hours of driving, I had made it home. I walked up to my front door and was just about to open it when I turned and asked the officers, "What about my friend? How do I know he's safe, and is there anything you can do to find him?" One of them replied, "Don't worry, we'll send out officers to the location to find him. Just get indoors and we'll handle it." I accepted there was nothing I could do for him at that moment, so I opened the door and went inside. I tried calling him one last time in hopes of an answer, but nothing. I got to bed just lying awake, rethinking everything that had happened, where my friend could be, and whether those haunting owl creatures had something to do with his disappearance. My lesson learned: don't drive onto old abandoned roads after dark. Before I get into the story, here's a little backstory. I'm a 19-year-old female that suffers from a panic disorder. My best friend and I decided I should go visit her and stay in an Airbnb in the mountains. She is an experienced smoker, and I had never tried anything, so was very curious. Now to the story. My first time smoking weed was the most traumatic panic attack of my life. I have a severe panic disorder and have had hundreds of attacks throughout my life, but I've been taking a medication for about 3 years now that has been helping me tremendously. At one point, I'd even forgotten what a panic attack even felt like. When my best friend and I got back to our Airbnb, she wanted to take some hits off of her dab pen. She told me she uses it to help her sleep and that it helps with anxiety. So, being curious, I took 3 hits as she told me to take more than 1. The high started fine, the ceiling swaying a bit, feeling giggly and laughing at everything, but then gradually got more intense. The walls and ceilings were swaying back and forth faster and faster. My tongue felt like it was vibrating and my mouth got incredibly dry. In a split second, I went from completely fascinated to completely terrified. I had started feeling my first panic attack in years. but this time it was 100 times worse than I have ever remembered. I started feeling afraid it had been laced with something. At one point I burst into tears for no reason, which is very unlike me. I was floating in and out of consciousness. I couldn't remember what my friend was saying, or what I was saying for that matter. My responses were delayed, and the time was an illusion. I couldn't understand it, which freaked me out the most. I thought I was going to die. I remember being so afraid to sleep because I was afraid I would never wake up, begging my friend to stop telling me to sleep because of that reason. I had no control over my thoughts. I thought of every single bad decision I've made in my life, and all at once. I had an overwhelming sense of guilt. My friend kept telling me, "This isn't a normal high. You're just having a panic attack. Stop freaking out." Which actually made it a million times worse, because all I wanted was to be reassured that I was high and that I was okay. I wasn't even causing a scene. I was whispering the whole time, because I was so afraid to cause a scene. She called her mum at 1 a.m. after I begged her to call someone. My friend actually took my phone away so I couldn't call an ambulance, and I was too stoned to try to get it back. I remember begging her to call an ambulance, and when I would drift in and out of sleep, she would say, "It's on its way. It's almost here. Your mum knows. The Airbnb lady knows. You're going to be taken care of." But the ambulance never came. I'm thankful for that now, and my mum didn't know. I wish she did. She would have helped me a lot through the attack. When it was about 5 a.m., I was floating in and out of sleep until the high panic attack stopped. The high had lasted about 6 hours, from 12:30 a.m. to 6. I'd fall asleep and wake up 15 minutes later, panicking every time. My so-called best friend of 7 years actually sent me a long message after I flew home, telling me how fucked up I am, and that there's no way the weed did that to me. That she had taken several hits and it wasn't laced. She accused me of basically being a mentally unstable drug addict, which isn't true at all. That was my first time ever experimenting with drugs. Ever since that day, I have had the occasional panic attack. It triggered something in my head. I'm not saying weed is bad, because it's definitely not, but please be aware of what you're smoking or consuming. It is very important also to be in an environment that you're familiar with.